My mother loved history.
Let me tell you something. Learning is about them as much as you. See, people don't change nearly as much as they think they do. World history isn't really about the past, it's about people. I hope that you are as intrigued by questions as I am for the rest of your life. It's amazing.
That was my mother. She was as much a student as she was a teacher. I could make videos literally all day on the very many conversations we used to have about the different books she read. But she's with our Lord and Savior now. And that's not really the purpose of today's video. But see, she never tried to convince me to love history. She simply loved understanding why people did the things they did. And looking back, I don't think she was teaching me history as much as she was teaching me the art of curiosity. And here lately, that very curiosity has got me asking what we've begun to lose. As I look around at so much going on in today's society, I ask, have we lost sight with the lessons from our past? In an age where so much information is so easy to miss. Like this.
We must lie to the infidel. Let's watch.
New York, the Independent Rent Guidelines Board just froze the rent. That means if you're one of the more than 2 million New Yorkers who lives in a rent-stabilized apartment, your rent's going to be frozen next year.
The difference between the past and the present.
It's very limited, the videos that you see come out of Cuba, because they control everything.
We headed into downtown Havana with the hopes that we'd shake off the two spies that were telling us. And I want you to notice the pure decay here. The streets and the buildings look like they're about to fall apart, and this is due to 50 years of no innovation inside of a communist country.
And the subtle differences between one ideal and the other.
Patriotism is always promoted as solidarity. Behind the symbols, the territory, the language, the culture, this idea that even people you've never met and will never meet are there for you and you're there for them. It's a nice idea, and said in this abstract way, there's nothing inherently wrong with it.
Canadian patriotism is very quiet. It's embedded in how we live, how we take care of one another and show up for our communities and the values that we share. When your neighbor is waving a flag from the porch, it's hard to recognize that quietly making sure everyone has healthcare is also a form of loving your country.
And imagine getting arrested for just simply saying what's on your mind.
There is a big war, and this is the next big problem that's going to happen. The next big attack on people's liberties is going to be on social media, and it's going to be against free speech.
Basically, the idea that if somebody finds something offensive and they report it to the police as such, then that person hasn't committed a criminal offence, but they've committed a non-crime incident. Basically, in Orwellian terms, a non-crime crime.
Those conversations, they were three different people, different subjects. But did you notice what they all had in common? If history has already shown us the consequences, then why on earth are we becoming willing so easily to ignore its lessons? Can we preserve America's future if we're forgetting the very lessons that helped build it?
We can still believe, 'cause BossMan is on the air.
And the story continues. BossMan On Air here, broadcasting to you for the American dream, built on faith, sustained by freedom, because the story is not over. So my mother taught me something I didn't fully appreciate until I grew up and became an adult. She taught me that there's a difference between hearing something and understanding it. Today, we live in a world where opinions travel farther and faster than any other time in our history. We're surrounded constantly by headlines, podcasts, short streams, live streams, articles, you name it. And every one of them is asking for one thing: our attention. And they're trying to shape the very way we think. Ask anyone. Most will say,
there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Conversation is healthy, as is disagreement.
And yeah, disagreement has always been part of a free society. But somewhere along the way, I think we've begun to confuse the beginning of a conversation with the end of it. And an opinion is where a conversation starts, but it should never be where the thinking stops. It's one of the lessons my mother taught me, and I'm so thankful she did. She loved books because they invited her in to compare one idea against another. She wasn't really looking for someone to tell her what to believe as much as she was looking for understanding. History to her wasn't a collection of names and dates. History to her was evidence. When she read about Rome, she wasn't just interested in Rome itself, she was interested in Caesar, why they set up their rules the way they did. When she read about the Second World War, she wasn't just reading about Europe, she was interested in Churchill and how he come to think the way he did.
We shall never surrender.
She was in it for the whole enchilada. She wanted to know things like why the Japanese decided to act when they did, what made them surrender, what led to the decisions involved, who knew, who didn't. She was studying people. She wanted to understand why ordinary men and women could embrace ideas that would later become warnings to future generations. Asking why may be one of the greatest gifts she ever gave me, because history doesn't merely just preserve victories, it preserves mistakes. And if we're unwilling to study those mistakes, then we'll eventually lose the ability to recognize them when they begin appearing again and again under different names, different slogans, and different ways people sneak it in. I want to give you what my mother so perfectly imparted on me. The sensitive questions help us build a better tomorrow. At first glance, they don't appear connected at all. The 3 videos from earlier, one discussion centers around economics. The other centers around patriotism. Another centers around freedom of speech. Yet all 3 of them beneath the conversation have one common thread. How much do we remember? More importantly, how much have we forgotten? I'd like to know something from you in the comments. Put it down here. Tell me, what do you think we're willing to compare today's ideas with yesterday's experiences? And do all that before deciding where tomorrow should lead us?
Boss man, I think you're asking a very good question, but good luck with the answers.
Yeah, I know. I don't expect the comments to be full of rainbows and unicorns. Some of you may agree, some of you may disagree, some of you may really have some harsh input on that comment, but this video isn't about forcing my opinions on you. Know that, okay? Like my mother, who never forced anything on me, instead she helped me become curious enough to look for things myself, much like I think we should do more of here today. The question is whether we're bringing history into these conversations enough so that we learn, or are we leaving it set quietly on a bookshelf, waiting for the dust to accumulate and the maid to show up to clean house? And that's where I believe curiosity becomes one of the greatest responsibilities of a free people. Not because curiosity guarantees we'll always reach the right answer or conclusion, no. But because it helps keep us humble enough to continue asking questions.
What guarantees that we will have free speech protection in today's world?
Well, I am so glad that you're interested in that. Good question.
The thing about questions is questions lead to evidence. Evidence leads to understanding. And understanding leads to wisdom. And wisdom has always been one of the strongest defenses against any civilization that dares come against you. Because history is a funny way of rewarding the people who are willing to learn from it, and reminding those who refuse that the cost comes with a very hefty bill. One of the things I've come to appreciate over the years is that history doesn't simply preserve the stories of those who won. It also preserves the price paid by those who lost. Sometimes the victors write in the history books, but the defeated leave behind the warnings. Think about that for just a minute. They're not simply just gone, forgotten. Every civilization that's ever risen, every nation that's ever fallen, every war that's ever been fought, somebody paid the tuition. Some paid with their reputation, some their livelihoods, yet some paid with their lives. So isn't it then natural to ask whether or not history has something to teach us? And whether we're humble enough to even accept that education that someone else has already paid for? Some of the deepest lessons can be found not just in books and pages, but in the missing pieces that you may uncover. Maybe that's why I find today's conversation so fascinating. People often refer to books and periodicals as recorded history, like it's some Dead Sea Scroll was locked away, never to be talked about, right? I found those things, when you discover them, open up possibilities of what could be, if only we ask the right questions. But what concerns me isn't the disagreement, it's how quickly we become satisfied with stopping at the first thing we hear. We scroll, we react, we rinse and repeat all the time. The TikTok phenomenon. And somewhere in that process, we've begun treating opinions like conclusions instead of invitations. My mother never did that. She'd finish a chapter, close the book, set it down, look up at me, and begin a conversation that, God, I wish I could have more of today. She'd ask questions the author never thought of. Things like, why? What were they thinking? What choices did they believe they had? Whether they were winning or losing. And here's the one that always gets me, really, really gets me. What can we learn from this? Maybe, just maybe, that's the habit we've allowed to drift away in today's society. I mean, not our ability to read, but simply our willingness to keep learning. The American dream is never depended on perfect people. It's dependent on people willing to remain students, much like my mother. The conversations you watched at the beginning of this video, they're happening every day. You know, I often wonder what my mother would have thought if she were still alive today and could have been able to experience what we live in today in terms of the internet and the access to information. Not because she would have been overwhelmed. Oh, I think she would have loved having access to more of the books and whatnot, more ideas, more voices and more ideas than any generation before her. But I also think she would have been deeply concerned by one thing: how quickly we'd become willing to just mistake the first conclusion for the final conclusion. The most dangerous part of conclusions is sometimes they can lead to the ends before the means, without even so much as a thought. The danger isn't disagreement. The danger is believing that the conversation's over before we've asked the questions that matter the most. History's never asked us to become prisoners of the past. It asks us something much more difficult: to become students of it. Every generation inherits more than just a nation. It inherits a story already in progress. Succeed or fail, every one of them leaves behind a lesson. The only question history leaves for us that we should really answer is whether we're willing to learn from it. The American dream isn't preserved because yesterday got everything right. It's preserved when today's generation has the courage to step up and keep learning, to keep asking, to keep improving what we've been entrusted with. We continue the process of growth and learning not by assumptions, but by having the courage to write a better next chapter. The pen has always been in our hands. The question is, what are we going to write next? As the story continues.